When you visit a doctor, you enter a world of decisions. Your symptoms are translated into data. Blood is drawn. Tissues are sampled. Invisible markers are sought within your body. These tests form the very foundation of your medical journey. They are the first words in a long and important conversation about your health. We trust this process completely. We see it as an objective, scientific path to understanding what is wrong. The results from these tests will determine the next steps, the treatments you are offered, the prognosis you are given. It is a system built on a promise of clarity and precision, guiding your doctor toward the right diagnosis and ultimately the right care. But who provides the tools for this clarity? A single name appears with remarkable frequency, yet it remains largely outside of public awareness. That name is Roche. It is a Swiss multinational healthcare company. You may have heard of its pharmaceutical division, which develops life-saving drugs for cancer, influenza, and other serious diseases. This is the visible side of the company. However, there is another, quieter side to Roche. It operates in the background, inside laboratories and hospitals. It is the diagnostics division, and it is enormous. Roche is not just a drug company. It is the global leader in vitro diagnostics. This means it manufactures the machines, the chemical reagents, and the software hospitals use to analyze biological samples. From routine blood work to sophisticated genetic sequencing, Roche's technology is often the first point of contact between you and the healthcare system. It is the silent partner in your diagnosis, shaping the information your doctor receives long before a prescription is written. This dual identity is not a coincidence. It is a deliberate, powerful business strategy. The company can develop the cure and define the disease. It creates tests identifying patient populations, then sells targeted therapies for them. This integration gives Roche exceptional control. It lets them steer medicine from diagnosis through treatment. Our investigation begins with a simple, profound question. What does it mean when the company that defines your illness also sells you the cure? This is the story of Roche's quiet power. The Roche story begins not in a modern laboratory, but in the industrial heart of 19th century Europe. In 1896, a young businessman named Fritz Hoffmann La Roche established his company in Basel, Switzerland. His vision was bold for its time. He wanted to move beyond the traditional apothecary model, where remedies were mixed by hand, and into the industrial production of standardized, branded medicines. This was a new frontier for healthcare, one that promised consistency, reliability, and global reach. Hoffmann was convinced that branded pharmaceutical products could establish a bond of trust directly with doctors and patients, a principle that would guide the company for over a century. Early on, the company found success where others had struggled, pioneering the mass production of vitamins. Roche's first major breakthrough came with its work on vitamins. It was one of the first companies to synthesize vitamin C on an industrial scale, marketing it under the brand name Redoxon in 1934. This success cemented Roche's reputation as an innovator in chemical synthesis and large-scale manufacturing. The company understood how to take a complex scientific discovery and turn it into a widely available, commercially successful product. This expertise in vitamins would make Roche a dominant force in the nutrition market for decades. The company was building a foundation, not just on scientific prowess, but on the ability to market science effectively to a global audience, making health a tangible, packaged commodity for the masses. Following the Second World War, Roche entered what many consider its golden age of pharmaceuticals. The company's research laboratories began producing a string of blockbuster drugs that would change the face of medicine and society itself. In the 1960s, Roche introduced the benzodiazepine family of tranquilizers, which included Librium and, most famously, VALIUM. These drugs became cultural phenomena, offering relief for a world grappling with new anxieties. VALIUM became the most prescribed drug in the United States, a testament to Roche's skill in developing effective compounds and, crucially, marketing them to a vast medical community. The company was no longer just a vitamin maker. It was a pharmaceutical titan influencing daily life. This period defined Roche as a classic pharmaceutical powerhouse. Its business model was clear and immensely profitable. Discover novel chemical compounds, patent them, conduct clinical trials, and deploy a massive sales force to persuade doctors to prescribe them. The focus was entirely on therapeutics, the treatment of symptoms and diseases. The world of diagnostics, the practice of identifying the disease in the first place, was a separate industry. It was a realm of microscopes, chemical assays, and laboratory equipment, populated by different companies with different business models. For most of the 20th century, Roche saw no reason to enter that world. Its success was built on creating the cure, not the test. The ground began to shift in the 1980s. The rise of molecular biology and genetics promised a new era of medicine, one that was more precise and personalized. Scientists were beginning to understand that diseases like cancer were not a single entity, but a collection of distinct conditions, each driven by specific genetic mutations. This new knowledge presented a challenge to the traditional blockbuster drug model. A drug that worked for everyone was becoming a less common goal. Instead, the future seemed to lie in targeted therapies, drugs designed to work on a specific molecular pathway found only in a subset of patients. This created a new, critical dependency. To sell a targeted drug, you first had to find the target. Roche's leadership recognized this paradigm shift earlier than many of its competitors. They saw that the future of their high-value pharmaceutical pipeline would depend on the ability to accurately identify the right patient. If a new cancer drug only worked for 10% of patients with a specific biomarker, then a reliable test for that marker was not just helpful, it was essential for the drug's commercial viability. Leaving the development of these crucial tests to other companies created a significant risk. What if a diagnostic partner was slow or unreliable, or decided to work with a competitor? The logical conclusion was to control the entire process. The diagnosis had to become part of the Roche ecosystem. This strategic realization triggered a fundamental pivot. Roche began to look outside its own walls, not for drug compounds, but for diagnostic expertise. The company embarked on a series of strategic acquisitions, methodically buying its way into the diagnostics industry. This was not a tentative step, but a decisive and expensive campaign to build a second, parallel empire. The most significant move came in 1997 with the acquisition of Boehringer Mannheim, a German company with a formidable portfolio of diagnostic tests and equipment. This single, massive transaction instantly transformed Roche from a pharmaceutical company with a minor interest in diagnostics into a global leader in the field. The Boehringer Mannheim acquisition was followed by another transformative purchase in 2008, Genentech. While primarily known as a biotech pioneer in drug development, Genentech was also at the forefront of using genetic information to guide therapy. Its blockbuster cancer drug, Herceptin, was a prime example of the new model. It was only effective in breast cancer patients whose tumors had a specific genetic marker, HER2. To prescribe Herceptin, doctors first had to use a diagnostic test to confirm the patient was HER2 positive. By acquiring Genentech, Roche not only gained a portfolio of groundbreaking drugs, but also internalized the very logic of companion diagnostics. The strategy was no longer theoretical. It was now the core of its most valuable asset. With the key pieces in place, Roche began the complex work of weaving together its two halves. The goal was to create a seamless entity where pharmaceutical research and diagnostic development were not just aligned, but deeply integrated. This meant breaking down the traditional silos that separated the two industries. Drug development teams began working alongside diagnostic teams from the earliest stages of research. When a new drug candidate targeting a specific molecular pathway was identified, a parallel project would begin to create a reliable test, a companion diagnostic, to detect that same pathway in patients. This concurrent development model was designed to shorten timelines and ensure that by the time a new drug was ready for approval, its essential diagnostic tool was ready too. This integration created a powerful feedback loop. Data from diagnostic tests used in clinical trials could provide invaluable insights, helping researchers refine drug candidates and better understand disease mechanisms. For example, by analyzing patient samples, Roche could identify new biomarkers that might predict a drug's success or failure, allowing them to design more efficient and targeted clinical trials. This data-rich approach gave Roche a significant competitive advantage. While other pharmaceutical companies had to partner with external diagnostic firms, Roche could leverage its own vast and growing repository of biological data to make smarter decisions, accelerating its drug pipeline and increasing its probability of success. The strategy manifested in a portfolio of highly successful products that embodied the synergy between drugs and tests. Products like Herceptin for HER2-positive breast cancer and later Zelboraf for BRAF-mutated melanoma became the gold standard for personalized medicine. In each case, Roche provided both the therapy and the primary diagnostic test used to identify eligible patients. This created a closed loop. Oncologists would use a Roche test on a Roche machine to find the specific mutation, which would then lead them to prescribe a Roche drug. This ecosystem was not only efficient, but also incredibly sticky, making it difficult for competitors to break in with either a rival drug or a rival test. By the 2010s, the transformation was complete. Roche was no longer just a pharmaceutical company, it was a fully integrated healthcare solutions provider. It had successfully fused its historical strength in drug manufacturing with a new dominant position in the world of diagnostics. This dual structure allowed the company to exert influence at two of the most critical points in the patient journey, the moment of diagnosis and the moment of treatment. The quiet power Fritz Hoffmann-La had envisioned through branded medicines had evolved into something far more structural and profound. The company had built an architecture of control that was embedded in the very logic of modern medicine. Your health begins as a story you tell your doctor. It is a story told in words, describing pain, fatigue, or a sense of unease. But for modern medicine, this story is just the preface. The real text is written inside your body, in the complex language of biology. Diagnostics are the tools that translate this biological language into information a doctor can use. They take a sample of you, a few milliliters of blood, a small piece of tissue, a swab from your throat, and search for specific signals. These signals could be the number of white blood cells, the level of a certain protein, or the presence of a viral gene. The results form an objective map of your internal state. This process transforms the subjective experience of being ill into a set of objective data points. A feeling of tiredness becomes a specific measure of iron in your blood. A persistent cough is analyzed for the genetic signature of a bacterium or virus. This act of translation is fundamental to how medicine is practiced today. It moves the decision-making process from intuition and experience alone to a foundation of measurable, verifiable facts. The diagnostic test provides the evidence. It offers a clear, impartial verdict that guides the doctor away from guesswork and toward a confident diagnosis. It is the bedrock upon which all subsequent medical decisions are built. The tools that perform this translation are highly sophisticated. At the center of most modern hospital laboratories are large, automated analyzers. These are complex machines, often the size of a large office desk, engineered to handle hundreds of samples an hour with robotic precision. A laboratory technician loads your blood sample, and the machine does the rest. It uses chemical reagents, specially designed substances that react in the presence of a specific biological marker, to perform dozens of tests simultaneously. Roche's Cobas line of analyzers are among the most common of these machines found in hospitals worldwide, quietly and efficiently turning biological samples into the numbers that define your health. These numbers are more than just data. They are gatekeepers. They determine whether your condition is seen as normal or abnormal, urgent or routine. A cholesterol level above a certain threshold triggers a recommendation for lifestyle changes or medication. The presence of a particular antibody can confirm an autoimmune disease, unlocking a specific treatment pathway. In this way, diagnostics do not just describe your condition, they actively shape your medical reality. They define the boundaries of illness and wellness, setting the agenda for what comes next. Before a single pill is prescribed, the diagnostic test has already drawn the map and charted the course. In the past, a diagnosis like lung cancer was a broad label. It described the location of the disease and appearance of the disease, but little about its underlying biology. Treatment options were often blunt instruments like chemotherapy, applied to large groups of patients with varying degrees of success. However, the genomic revolution revealed that lung cancer is not one disease, but many. Two tumors that look identical under a microscope can have vastly different genetic drivers. This discovery created the need for a new type of test, one that could look deeper than the microscope, into the very DNA of the cancer itself. This test would become the key to a new generation of targeted therapies. This is the logic of the companion diagnostic. It is a specific type of test that is inextricably linked to a specific drug. The test is designed to detect a particular biomarker, often a genetic mutation, that the drug is designed to target. The drug will only be effective in patients who have this biomarker. Therefore, the test becomes a mandatory prerequisite for treatment. You cannot get the drug without first taking the test. This creates a formal, regulated partnership between the diagnostic tool and the therapeutic product. They are developed together, approved together, and marketed together as a single healthcare solution. It is a perfect pairing of problem and solution. Roche has mastered this model. Consider the case of Zelboraf, a drug for metastatic melanoma, a deadly form of skin cancer. Zelboraf is highly effective, but only for patients whose tumors have a specific mutation in a gene called BRAF. This mutation is present in about half of all melanoma patients. To identify this group, Roche developed the Cobas 4800 BRAF V600 mutation test. An oncologist who suspects a patient might benefit from Zelboraf must first order this specific test. If the test comes back positive, the path to the Roche drug is unlocked. If it is negative, a different treatment must be found. The diagnostic test acts as the sole gatekeeper to the therapy. This integrated approach offers clear clinical benefits. It prevents patients from receiving expensive drugs and potentially toxic drugs that would not work for them. It allows for the development of highly potent therapies that might be too dangerous for a general population, but are life-saving for a select few. However, it also creates a powerful commercial ecosystem. By controlling both the diagnostic test and the targeted drug, a company like Roche builds a protected franchise. It ensures that the entire patient pathway, from the initial genetic analysis to the final prescription, happens within its own system, solidifying its market position and making it incredibly difficult for competitors to gain a foothold. The power of diagnostics extends beyond these high-profile cancer treatments. It is woven into the fabric of everyday medical practice. When a doctor orders a panel of tests, the results that come back from the lab do more than just provide data. They often come with reference ranges, the thresholds that define what is considered normal. These ranges are established through extensive population studies, but they are implemented by the diagnostic systems themselves. The software inside a Roche Cobas analyzer is programmed with these cutoffs. When your result is processed, the machine automatically flags it as high, low, or normal, directly influencing the doctor's interpretation. This seemingly neutral function of setting reference ranges has subtle but profound implications. It establishes the very definition of what constitutes a medical problem requiring intervention. For example, the threshold for diagnosing prediabetes or high cholesterol has shifted over the years, based on new evidence. When these guidelines change, diagnostic companies must update the software and reference materials for their machines. The company that can do this most efficiently and reliably across a global network of hospitals gains influence. It becomes a partner in disseminating new standards of care, shaping the clinical agenda on a massive scale by defining the parameters of disease for millions of patients. Furthermore, the design of the diagnostic tests themselves can steer clinical thinking. A diagnostic panel might bundle certain tests together, encouraging doctors to check for a group of conditions simultaneously. New, more sensitive tests can identify diseases at earlier stages, creating entirely new patient populations that require monitoring or early treatment. For example, the development of high-sensitivity troponin tests for detecting heart attacks has changed the way emergency rooms manage patients with chest pain, identifying at-risk individuals who might have been missed by older tests. Roche, as a leading developer of these assays, is at the forefront of defining these new clinical pathways. This is a quiet, structural form of influence. It is not about persuading a single doctor to prescribe a single drug. It is about shaping the informational environment in which thousands of doctors make millions of decisions every day. By providing the tools, the software, the reagents, and the reference ranges, the diagnostics provider sets the terms of the conversation. They establish the framework that guides the clinician's eye, highlighting certain results and defining what requires action. The logic of the diagnostic report becomes the logic of the clinical response. Before the doctor even begins to consider treatment options, the diagnostic system has already set the agenda. To understand Roche's market dominance, you must look inside the engine room of modern medicine, the hospital laboratory. These are highly automated, 24/7 operations processing thousands of biological samples every day. Speed, reliability, and efficiency are paramount. In this high-pressure environment, hospitals do not simply buy individual tests. They invest in entire diagnostic platforms. These platforms are integrated systems of hardware, software, and chemical reagents working together seamlessly. A hospital's purchase of a single manufacturer's system can shape laboratory operations for a decade or more. This is where Roche's quiet power becomes tangible, physical, and deeply embedded. Roche Diagnostics is the undisputed global leader. The Cobas series is installed in hospital labs and commercial labs worldwide. These are not small tabletop devices. They are large modular systems linked into automated production lines, handling clinical chemistry, immunoassays, and molecular diagnostics. A Cobas commitment is more than a machine. It's a long-term relationship with Roche. Roche provides installation, training for lab staff, ongoing service and maintenance, and a continuous supply of proprietary test kits and reagents. This market share was not achieved by accident. It is the result of a deliberate strategy of integrated solutions. Laboratories face constant pressure to reduce costs, improve turnaround times, and minimize errors. Roche's platforms are built to do exactly that. By automating tasks once done by hand, it increases efficiency and reduces potential for human error. One platform offers a vast menu of tests, consolidating workflows. For a hospital CEO or a lab manager, choosing Roche is often the path of least resistance. It's a reliable, comprehensive solution from a dominant, trusted player. The result, a presence that is vast and nearly invisible to the public. In many hospitals, most diagnostic tests, from a routine cholesterol check to a sophisticated cancer biomarker analysis, run on Roche equipment. The technology forms the backbone of diagnostic infrastructure. Quiet, humming machines in the basement generate critical information doctors rely on to make life or death decisions. That ubiquity gives Roche enormous structural power. It's not just a supplier, it's part of the hospital's operating system, deeply integrated into daily patient care. The business model for these large diagnostic platforms creates a powerful form of customer lock-in. The initial purchase of the hardware, the analyzers themselves, is only the beginning of the economic relationship. Often, the machines are placed in laboratories at a relatively low upfront cost, or even leased. The real recurring revenue comes from the sale of consumables, the proprietary reagents, test kits, and other materials required to run the tests. These consumables are designed to work exclusively with Roche's machines. A test kit from a competing manufacturer will not run on a Cobas analyzer. This is often referred to as a razor and blade model. The analyzer is the razor, and the test kits are the disposable blades. This model makes it incredibly difficult and expensive for a hospital to switch providers. Once a laboratory has invested in a Roche system, trained its staff on that system, and integrated it into its workflow, the costs of changing to a competitor are immense. It would require buying new equipment, retraining the entire technical staff, and validating every single test to ensure it meets regulatory standards, a process that can take months. This creates a high barrier to entry for any potential competitor and ensures a stable, long-term revenue stream for Roche. The hospital becomes a captive customer, dependent on Roche for the supplies needed to keep its laboratory running. This lock-in extends beyond just the technical components. It also involves data and software. Roche's systems generate vast amounts of diagnostic data, which is managed by the company's proprietary software. This software not only controls the analyzers, but also helps laboratories manage quality control, track patient results, and interface with the hospital's electronic health record system. Migrating years of patient data from one proprietary system to another is a complex and risky undertaking. This digital ecosystem further strengthens the lock-in, making the prospect of switching to a different platform even more daunting for a hospital's IT department and leadership. The system is designed to be sticky. The effect on purchasing decisions is profound. The lab manager is not simply choosing the best test, they are managing a relationship with a single dominant vendor. When Roche develops a new, innovative test, it can be rolled out quickly and seamlessly to its enormous installed base of analyzers through a simple software update and a new reagent kit. Hospitals with Roche systems will naturally adopt the new Roche test. A competitor with an equivalent or even superior test faces a major uphill battle. They must convince a hospital to go through the costly and disruptive process of switching entire platforms just to gain access to one new test. The structure of the market favors the incumbent. The silent partner in the lab. This deep integration transforms Roche from a mere vendor into a silent, strategic partner for the hospital. The company's service technicians are a regular presence in the lab, performing maintenance and troubleshooting. Its sales representatives work closely with lab managers to plan for future needs, discussing new tests coming down the pipeline and planning upgrades to hospital capabilities. Roche provides educational resources, workshops, and support that go far beyond simply selling a product. It helps the laboratory function, evolve, and meet the ever-changing demands of modern medicine. This partnership is valuable to the hospital, but it also solidifies Roche's influence. This partnership shapes the hospital's capabilities and, by extension, the care it can offer. When a hospital invests in Roche's most advanced molecular diagnostic platforms, it gains the ability to perform cutting-edge genetic tests for cancer and infectious diseases. This allows its doctors to practice personalized medicine. However, it also means the hospital is adopting Roche's specific approach to personalized medicine. The menu of available tests is the menu that Roche has chosen to develop and validate for its machines. The clinical pathways that open up for patients are the pathways for which Roche provides the corresponding companion diagnostics. The hospital's diagnostic agenda becomes closely aligned with Roche's strategic priorities. This influence is subtle and rarely questioned. From the hospital's perspective, they are simply acquiring best-in-class technology that enables better patient care. The partnership with Roche feels collaborative, not coercive. Yet the structural reality is that a single corporation has an immense say in what diseases the hospital can test for, how those tests are performed, and what the results mean. This power is not wielded through overt commands, but through the design of the systems themselves. The hardware, the software, and the locked-in commercial relationships. It is a quiet authority, embedded in the infrastructure of diagnosis. Ultimately, this network of machines and contracts gives Roche a unique vantage point. The company has a real-time view of diagnostic trends across thousands of hospitals. It can see which tests are being ordered most frequently, where new disease outbreaks are occurring, and what unmet diagnostic needs exist. This flow of information is an invaluable strategic asset. It informs the company's research and development, allowing it to focus on creating the new drugs and the new tests that the market is already signaling it needs. The hospital network does not just generate revenue for Roche. It functions as a vast global intelligence system, guiding the company's hand as it steers the future of diagnosis and treatment. The price of a life year. The fusion of diagnostics and pharmaceuticals brings us to one of the most contentious issues in modern healthcare: the price of medicine. Roche is the developer of some of the world's most effective and most expensive cancer drugs. These are not simple pills, but complex biological therapies, the result of billions in research and development. A single course of treatment with a Roche oncology drug can cost tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The company justifies these prices by pointing to the value they provide: extended survival, improved quality of life, or a potential cure for previously untreatable disease. They argue the price reflects profound innovation and the risk taken to bring these life-saving products to market. From the perspective of a patient or a public health system, this price creates immense challenges. Access is often determined not just by medical need, but by the ability to pay. Insurance companies, national health services, and individual patients face difficult negotiations. The question becomes less about what is clinically possible and more about what is economically feasible. A diagnosis manageable by a Roche drug can become a battle with the disease and with a system of cost barriers. The promise of personalized medicine is shadowed by its astronomical price tag, creating a deep tension between innovation and equity. This tension fuels negotiations between Roche and payers, like the UK's NHS and large American insurance companies. These organizations must balance budgets while trying to provide the best care for their populations. Roche enters negotiations from a position of immense strength. It is not just selling a drug. Often it is the only effective treatment for a specific, genetically defined subpopulation. When a drug like Kadcyla or Perjeta is shown to significantly extend lives of HER2-positive breast cancer patients, pressure on payers to provide access is enormous. The high price becomes a non-negotiable entry point to a life-saving therapy. The value proposition is framed in terms of life years gained. Economists and health officials calculate cost-effectiveness, weighing price against additional months or years of life provided to a patient. Roche's targeted therapies often perform well in these analyses, even with high prices. That creates a powerful argument for reimbursement. The company can show that while upfront cost is high, the drug delivers measurable, significant benefit. The debate becomes a complex ethical calculation about the monetary value of human life, in which Roche, as the sole provider, holds a very strong hand. The strategic advantage of controlling diagnosis and therapy becomes crystal clear when we examine how markets are structured. The companion diagnostic, the test that identifies the right patient, does more than just ensure clinical efficacy. It acts as a powerful market-shaping tool. By creating the test that defines the patient population, Roche creates a bespoke market for its high-value drug. The test draws a circle around a specific group of patients, and for that group, Roche's drug is presented as the primary, if not the only, tailored solution. This segmentation lets the company price its therapy on the high value it provides to this targeted niche, insulated from broader market pressures. Consider the diagnostics' role in the commercial ecosystem. It is the gatekeeper. It controls access to the therapy. That gatekeeper function gives Roche significant leverage. The company that owns the gate can charge a toll. The toll is not on the test itself. Companion diagnostics are often relatively inexpensive. The real value is captured in the price of the drug the test unlocks. The diagnostic creates the medical necessity. The drug fulfills it at a premium price. This integrated system ensures value flows back to the company that identified the patients, creating a closed economic loop that's hard for competitors to disrupt. This model influences negotiations with payers and reimbursement authorities. When Roche presents a new drug and its companion diagnostic as a complete package, it changes the conversation. The discussion is no longer just about the price of a drug, but about the value of a comprehensive, personalized treatment strategy. The company can argue its integrated solution provides superior outcomes, reduces wasted spending on ineffective treatments, and represents the future of medicine. That holistic argument can be more persuasive than a negotiation over a standalone drug price, allowing Roche to justify and defend a premium pricing structure as part of an innovative system of care. This control over the diagnostic pathway creates a subtle but significant barrier for competing therapies. A rival drug for the same genetically defined group faces a major hurdle. Oncologists already use Roche's diagnostic platform to identify these patients. The clinical workflow is built around the Roche test. A competitor must either work within the existing diagnostic ecosystem or convince doctors and labs to adopt a new testing process. That creates inertia favoring the incumbent. The diagnostic infrastructure channels patients and doctors toward the integrated Roche solution, reinforcing its strategic advantage. We have journeyed through the quiet, interconnected world that Roche has built. It began with a simple vision of standardized medicine and evolved into a vast, dual empire of diagnostics and therapeutics. We have seen how the company's machines and reagents form the backbone of hospital laboratories, translating the complex language of our bodies into the objective data that guides a doctor's hand. This is the first layer of influence, providing the very tools that define the presence and nature of disease. The silent humming Cobas analyzer in the basement is not merely a piece of equipment. It is the first gatekeeper in the patient's journey, shaping the informational landscape upon which all medical decisions are built. This foundational role gives Roche a profound and pervasive form of structural power. This power is then compounded by the elegant logic of the companion diagnostic. By fusing the development of a test with the development of a drug, Roche created a closed loop. The diagnostic identifies a highly specific group of patients, and the targeted therapy provides the exclusive solution: Herceptin, Zelboraf. This model offers clear clinical benefits by ensuring the right patient gets the right drug, but it also creates a bespoke, protected market. This integration allows Roche to command premium prices for its therapies, justified by their high efficacy in a narrowly defined population, a population that only its own tests can reliably identify. The diagnostic is the key, and the drug is the treasure it unlocks. The deep entrenchment of its diagnostic platforms in hospitals worldwide creates a powerful lock-in effect, making it difficult for competitors to gain a foothold. The vast network of machines functions as a global intelligence system, feeding real-time data back to the company that informs its research and de-risks its drug development pipeline. This synergy, this ability to control the process from diagnosis to treatment, translates into immense leverage during pricing negotiations with national health systems and insurers. The conversation is no longer just about the cost of a pill, but about the value of an entire integrated system of care that Roche itself has architected. The story of Roche is therefore not a story of corporate malfeasance or overt manipulation. It is a far more subtle and unsettling story about the nature of modern power. It reveals how influence can be embedded in the very infrastructure of a system, operating quietly and efficiently, far from public view. The company's dominance arises not from controversy, but from competence. Not from coercion, but from creating an ecosystem that is so logical, so efficient, and so deeply integrated that it becomes the path of least resistance for everyone involved. It is a quiet power, achieved by shaping the architecture of medical knowledge itself, one test and one therapy at a time. One of the most striking aspects of Roche's dual dominance is how little public scrutiny it receives. The world of pharmaceuticals is often a subject of intense debate. Drug prices, patent cliffs, and marketing practices frequently making headlines. Yet, the world of diagnostics remains largely in the shadows. There are no widespread public protests over the cost of a reagent or the proprietary nature of a diagnostic platform. This is partly by design. Diagnostics operate in a business-to-business realm, in laboratories, in hospitals, one step removed from the patient's direct experience. The machines and their influence remain invisible to the very people whose lives they fundamentally shape. This lack of public awareness is mirrored by a gap in regulatory oversight. New drugs undergo a famously rigorous and public approval process, while the pathway for diagnostic tests is often faster and less transparent. The standards for analytical validity and clinical validity are high, but the broader strategic implications of combining a diagnostic with a therapeutic are rarely part of the regulatory conversation. We regulate the safety and efficacy of the test and the drug, yet we do not have a framework for assessing the systemic power that comes from controlling both. The system evaluates products, not the quiet influence that accrues to a company that links them into a single dominant ecosystem. Roche's model is, in many ways, the logical endpoint of personalized medicine. It shows how a deep understanding of biology, together with immense industrial and strategic capability, can create powerful new ways to fight disease. The benefits are undeniable. Patients once given a terminal diagnosis now have hope, thanks to targeted therapies this integrated system enables. The precision of diagnostic processes saves people from the harm of treatments that would not have worked. The company has been a force for profound medical progress, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in healthcare. But the model leaves us with a difficult and enduring question. What does it mean for our health to be so shaped by a single commercial entity? As medicine becomes ever more personalized, ever more data-driven, and ever more complex, we are likely to see this integrated model become more common. The story of Roche is a case study in the quiet concentration of power in modern healthcare. Not overt control, but subtle, structural ownership of the journey from uncertainty to treatment. It challenges us to look beyond the prescription pad, into the laboratory, to understand the invisible architecture that steers our diagnosis, and to ask who holds the blueprint.